Well, hey there, changemakers. Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. It's Amy here. We are in episode number 42 already. I'm stoked that you're here with me today. I am talking about my thoughts on the Thighmaster and how I have been complicating things and I'm now practicing simplifying things. If that sounds like you, then let's get into it. I spent years building my interior design business trying to do all the things. The marketing, the networking, the free content, spending thousands of dollars on training and education, only to see minimal growth. After years of frustration, I finally started to ask, what am I missing? I had the systems in place for powerful growth. I had amazing clients. I had determination, drive, and commitment to spare. And yet, I wasn't seeing the success I desired. What if business is not about the doing? What if building a powerful business requires both powerful systems and something else, something deeper? I'm Amy Van Meel, and I'm on a journey to discover that something else. If you are ready to build a powerful business and do it knowing that your success is inevitable, join me as I share both the powerful systems I know work and my lessons and revelations as I discover that something deeper. Welcome, Changemaker, to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. Well, hey there, Changemakers. Thanks so much for joining me today. It's another gorgeous day here. I am loving winter. I know we're not technically in winter yet, but as soon as there's snow on the ground, my mind goes, we're in winter. So fall is one of the shortest seasons in my mind. And all the rest of my people out here are generally groaning because most people aren't excited about winter, but I am. I have 2 ski days in already. By the time you're listening to this, I will have 3 ski days in. I'm sure they've been amazing. I have winter tires on my car, so my Subaru is loving it. So yeah, I'm as happy as a duck in water, you could say. So anyway, I'm super stoked that you're joining me today. Thank you for taking the time and listening in. So I was thinking about what to talk about today. I wanted to bring something, I always want to bring something really good for you guys, something that will give you some deep value. And I'm like, what am I going to talk about on the podcast today? And I went downstairs to do my workout on my fancy new exercise equipment that I shared with you last week on the podcast. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to listen to some music and just chill out, get into the rhythm, and, an idea will come to me. And so as today was on the rowing machine, as I was on the rower, and I was looking around at the books, and I was listening to my music, and I got to thinking about the Thighmaster. Do you remember the Thighmaster? That it's like a weird D-shaped thing that you would squeeze between your legs. I don't know where the Thighmaster came up from, but anyway, it popped into my head and I thought, that would probably be really good for the muscles on the inside of my legs versus the rower is really good for my quads and my butt and whatever. And I'm like, maybe I could look into getting one of those. And so my train of thought carried on. And then all of a sudden I realized what I was doing. So maybe you're the same. When I am doing something, I get started on something, whether it's a health regime or an exercise regime or, starting something new in my business, whatever it is, I start with the basic idea. And then as I'm in it, I'm like, and then I could do this. And then I could do this. And hey, what if I start doing this? Now, here's the thing. The really great thing about the fact that those ideas are showing up means that my brain is firing and looking for other ways to increase what I'm doing, to maybe, have better results or whatever, to try something different. But what tends to happen, at least what I have experienced in my life, is that I end up just overwhelming myself with stuff. I end up, tacking on. So this is a really good example that I will give you. Just basic. Let's talk about exercise. So I'll start with saying I'm going to run 2 miles. All right, great. So then I start running 2 miles, and then I start, I get a couple days in, I'm like, I could also stop and do, maybe if I'm running outside, typically if now I'm on the treadmill, but if I'm running outside, I could stop and I could do 30 squats. Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, if I'm gonna do 30 squats, I should also stop and do a plank. Maybe I could, do like 2 minutes of plank, not straight. I'm not a superhuman yet, but give myself 2 minutes to do some plank. Okay, if I'm going to do that, I wonder if I could also find somewhere that I could do like some push-ups. And so all of a sudden, what is a simple run, which is just, get some exercise, get some fresh air, be outside, enjoy being in the moment, I suddenly tack on extra things. And then I set myself this expectation that I have to do that every day. And so then maybe I started with going, I'm just going to go running twice a week, right? Then it's like, okay, I'm going to add all these exercises in. Oh, I should probably do this more often if I really want to see results. So maybe I should start doing this 4 days a week or 5 days a week. And I maybe do that for a couple of weeks until it becomes something that I am just not enjoying, or it becomes something that is unsustainable. And so as I was sitting on the rowing machine this morning and my mind wandered off thinking about this Thighmaster and all these additional things that I should be doing that would, increase muscle mass or whatever in any way, shape, or form that my brain seemed to be thinking about, I found myself moving down this path again of wanting to add on. And I had a moment where I had a realization of what I was doing and went, this is silly. I have amazing equipment. My goal here is not to be some superhuman Ironman person. I don't need to be ripped or cut or anything else like that. My goal is to be healthy. Yes, I would like to lose a little bit of weight, but it's not like I'm overweight by any means. So, it's not like I need to add things in because I'm not doing enough. And I'm already balancing a full-time job. So I now have 40 hours a week that are going to a job. And I'm super grateful that I can do it from home because I can virtually seamlessly move from doing the work for my business and doing the work in my job. And then in the evening, going and having an evening with my guy. But that's 40 hours a week that are now dedicated to something else. And during that time, I can't be doing anything extra, right? So when I'm recording a podcast, I'm just recording a podcast. But let's say I'm publishing the podcast. I could be uploading the podcast, getting all the stuff ready to schedule it and send it out. I could be making a cup of coffee or baking a cake. I could be doing laundry. I could be doing all kinds of things because if I take a moment and step away, that's okay. But when I'm at my job, obviously I need to be there, right? I'm helping people and I'm working with my team. So all of a sudden, I've taken this huge chunk of time out of my week in a sense that I'm now dedicating it to something else. So by adding extra things in, what I'm doing is setting myself up for failure. So here's what I want to share today is just the idea of keeping things simple. So I was thinking already when I was getting ready, I sort of had a short amount of time between when I actually officially accepted the job and began the job. And so in the last few days getting ready for it, I had this idea in my mind that I think this could be a really cool experiment, kind of a fun experiment to see how I can balance this out. Because here's the thing, when I was doing my businesses full time, and I still have my interior design business, so that is still up and going. I'm working on growing this business, so that is a whole other project. But when I just had all my time dedicated to doing my business, I seemed to be really good at filling the time. But there were many days where I felt like I hadn't necessarily accomplished anything, or I would sit there going, what do I do now? Like I built this, I created this project and away I went and now it's up and going and now I'm doing the next thing and what do I do now? So I'd find ways to fill the time. And what that meant that in some ways I could make things super complicated or try to go after super complicated things because I had the time freedom to do so. Now, ultimately, that would be amazing, right? For us all to have this time freedom to be able to just like do the projects that we want to. But on the other hand, if we're using that time freedom and filling it up with stuff that we really don't need to, that aren't what I call moving the needle forward, then it's not well spent time, right? I would rather only spend, 4 or 5 hours a week doing the work and spend the rest of the time doing something else, something that you enjoy, whatever it is. So when I started this job, I was excited to see, how is this going to balance out? I'm really curious to see how this is going to affect either my productivity or how I select the activities to use my time for. So it's been a balancing act. I think I'm into week 5 with this job, and it's been a balancing act for sure. Partly because, like I said, there was a short amount of time between like accepting the offer and actually starting it. So there wasn't as much preparation that I could do. The last week before I started, let me tell you guys, was jam packed. But so it's been a challenge in a way to balance all the things that I have to do. Now, here's the really beautiful thing about it. I don't do all the extras anymore. I'm not concerned about them. They don't even cross my mind. And one of the things I've been working on with my coach is to release this idea of guilt. I grew up Catholic. I think I was born with guilt. Then I got baptized, and you've just been immersed in it for the rest of your life. So guilt has always been on my shoulder, like a 10-pound weight hanging off my ear, always, nipping in my ear saying, well, this is not good, whatever. So that was one thing that we addressed right away with my coach. And so this is a perfect opportunity where I'm not doing all these extra things, where if I hadn't done the work on healing the guilt that I had been perpetually giving myself, then that would be sitting in my ear going, Amy, you're not doing enough. And there was a moment of time where it's so funny. I mean, my guy has worked a full-time job for as long as he's been working, right? So he's always worked out of the house. He's a little bit jealous, I think, of the fact that I, A, get to work from home, and B, that I work for such an amazing company. But he's always been out of the house. And so there's been something in my mind, even while I was launching both my businesses, like my first business a few years ago and this business this year, that somehow feels like if I don't put in more time than he does, this is going to sound ridiculous to you, but hang with me here for a second. If I don't put in more time than he does, then I'm not working hard enough. I mean, it's like even hearing myself say it is the most ridiculous thing ever. And so what I was doing was creating extra work for myself. Now, here's a really fun thing. When I put together Lost to Launched Academy, when I was building the course and putting together the modules, every time that I would, anything that I wrote down, I would go through and I curate the content over and over and over again. Do people really need this? Is this critical? Will this move the needle, or is it just extra? And so I took all of the systems and the processes and everything that I've used to build my business over the last several years, and I distilled it down to the simplest things, because the way I looked at it, we're starting from scratch. If you're in Lost to Launch Academy or thinking about joining Lost to Launch Academy, you're probably starting from scratch, right? You may have a business idea. You've maybe been going at it for a little while, but it hasn't really, taken off yet. And things are super disorganized. That happens a lot to new entrepreneurs. And so I didn't want to, create something that would inundate an already busy or struggling entrepreneur with stuff that wouldn't help them. And so I went through the exercise several times. Every time I would write the module, or I would, write my video scripts or write the downloads, I would go through and read over it again and be like, do they really need this? Or is this just a filler? Because I don't want to add fillers. It needs to be something that is useful, practical, and will ideally move the needle, right? And by move the needle, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, like moving the needle forward, seeing progress on the actions that you're taking. That's what I mean by moving the needle. And so the interesting thing is that, when I'm doing it for someone else, I can easily see how to simplify things, but then in my own life, I'm really good at making things complicated. So I'm going to keep today a little bit shorter, but I wanted to just touch base and check in with you. Are you creating complication in your life because of whatever, because of some reason or voice that's running around in your mind that seems to have grabbed your ear and is saying, you need to do more. You need to, let's try this thing and let's try that thing and let's do that thing. I would say, I would challenge you, actually, if you can, the next couple of weeks, just have a good look at the activities that you're undertaking, how you're spending your time, and whether or not those activities are moving the needle forward. So if you're focused on, let's say, for example, you're focused on Instagram posts, and my Instagram activity has been a little all over the place. I have been challenged to be consistent since I started this job. There's been a few things that have fallen by the wayside. I was doing some live videos for my design business that I realized I haven't done one since I started the job. So I'm like, okay, me, I need to pick up on that again. But I would encourage you to have a look at, where are you putting a lot of time and energy, but maybe not seeing any results, or maybe you're telling yourself you need to do this, or even worse, someone has told you that you need to have those things. Oh my goodness, guys. If I had $1 for all the amount of advice and systems and stuff that I was told I needed to have in my business, I could retire right now. Like, it was, and not just the stuff that I would have in my business, but like they never actually made any difference. They never actually moved the needle. They just filled up my time, filled my brain with worry, had me feeling like I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not whatever, and never actually moved things forward. And so I would challenge you to really have a look at the activities that you're doing and ask yourself, is this moving the needle, or have I created this activity to fill my time? Because if it's not actually moving the needle, then I would encourage you to just let it go. Let it go for now. Give yourself 4 weeks off from doing that activity, and then have a look at what's happening. So here's the crazy thing. It's only been a short amount of time. And like I said, it's still a balancing act. I'm still learning, figuring out how to make it all work. But what has been astounding to me is that, first of all, I have been far less focused on what's happening in my business in a way. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but I'm saying this is what's been happening the last few weeks. I've been far less focused on what's been happening in my business in a way, and my downloads have gone up. So that was super interesting to me. Second thing I've noticed is that my Instagram engagement has gone up, and I've been on Instagram far less, and I've changed a little bit. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have noticed I've changed how I actually post about the podcast. I used to have an image, like I'd do 2 posts in a day, an image that has like the title of the podcast, et cetera, with a little thing, and then I'd have another image later on the day with a different caption, but all ideally pushing people, getting people to come check out the podcast. I've changed that because it was something that it was unmanageable now that I have this new allocation of my time. So now I've been doing 1 post for the podcast on the day that the podcast releases. And it's not just the generic image of like, here's the title of the podcast. I wanted to try something different. I'm like, what if I could simplify this? Could I make it more engaging and reduce the amount of effort on my part? So this is really outstanding to me to be able to see this and realize like, oh, this is a really neat experiment to see what's happening. So think about those things. Think about how you can maybe simplify something or just not do something for a while. Now, there's a small caveat with this where content is something that you don't want to let go. And by that, I mean, even though my time has been quite carefully allocated, I always make sure I have time to record the podcast. I always make sure that my podcast goes out on Tuesdays at 7 a.m., that the emails are written, that the my Instagram post is ready to go, even if that means that I'm doing it Monday night because, my week before has been crazy or whatever else. I make sure that it gets done. So my content always goes out. Now, like I mentioned earlier, in my design business, I was doing live videos on my Facebook page, and those have fallen a bit by the wayside because my brain has been just in so many directions. It hasn't been top of mind to me. It was something that I started doing just before I took on the job, and so it hasn't become, quite rooted into my brain. So it's something that I'm working on. So if you're putting out content for your business right now, which I would encourage, whether it's a podcast or a blog or live videos, whatever it is, do keep that up, but have a look at the process that you're taking to do it and see, could you simplify it in some way? Right? So a super simple, small change that has actually made a world of difference in terms of my time commitment was going from 2 Instagram posts to 1. And, going from this idea of I have to have this formatted image that shows the title and blah, blah, blah of the podcast to what would just be an engaging image that people would be like, oh, I wonder what's going on here, right? So it's that small change. All of a sudden that alone takes, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes out of my week. And when I'm working 40 hours a week somewhere else and I only have, a certain amount of time during the week to dedicate to this, 45 minutes adds up, man. It makes a huge difference. So yeah, just have a look at your activities and be honest with yourself. Is this something that is actually moving the needle? And if it's not, can I give myself the space to experiment by letting it go for 4 weeks? You don't have to let it go indefinitely. Just let it go for 4 weeks. And what you'll see after 4 weeks is whether or not it's something that, you do need to have in place. Maybe it's something that all of a sudden your engagement drops, or I don't know, you're like, this, other parts of my business don't make sense if I don't have this part in it. So, but it will give you a good indication of what's worth keeping and what's not. And like I said, after my revelation sitting on the rowing machine thinking about the Thighmaster this morning, keep things simple. Don't feel like you need to, fill up your time. Even if you are working in your business full time, have a good look at where you're using your time and can you simplify things? I know I was reading the 4-Hour Work Week. That is a long book, guys. I did not make it through all the way. There was just not enough time in the day to get it all done. But one of the things that he talks about in the 4-Hour Work Week is essentially like the word has escaped me, allocating your activity somewhere else. There's a different word for it. But anyway, so maybe you're hiring a VA or, whatever it is. So those are ways that you could actually open up some time as well. What I would suggest for now is start by just looking at your activities and seeing whether you've got activities in your day that are just time fillers. Because if they're not actually moving the needle, then there's no sense in hiring somebody else to do them either. They're just wasteful activities. So first start with that. And at the same time that you're doing that, practice. This is something I'm telling myself this too. So pay attention here. Amy, listen to yourself. Practice not filling up that time. So let's say, for example, you realize that you've been doing an activity every day that takes a half hour of every day, and it actually isn't moving the needle. It's not making any difference whatsoever. So you let it go. Practice not filling up that half an hour with some other kind of work. Maybe you take that half an hour to go for a walk, or to do a meditation, or to sit on the couch and watch Netflix, right? But practice not filling that time up right away so that you don't create this habit where you are looking for things that are filling your time needlessly, but what you're doing is now you're replacing it with something else that maybe isn't that useful either, right? So that's my challenge for you this week. And if you're ever finding yourself, adding things on, just think about me and the Thighmaster. That there's no reason to add a whole bunch of stuff onto your day or onto your calendar. And yeah, practice making things simple and just giving yourself some time away. All right, kids. With that, I need to get myself ready for my job because it's shortly after 10 in the morning and I start in about 45 minutes. So there's enough time for me to have a meditation. I just realized in this moment that normally I meditate before I do my podcast, but I was so freaking excited to talk to you guys today, I forgot. So I'm going to go do my meditation now. And then there's time for coffee and then away I go. I'm off to my job. So I wish you a phenomenal day. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for just tuning in. I have been watching, like I said, I've been watching my downloads go up, which is amazing. It just makes my heart so happy to see that the podcast is getting out to you, and I trust that it's inspiring you in some way. Or if nothing else, maybe you just like the sound of my voice, and that's the reason that you're listening. I don't know. But thank you so much for listening, and do share it out. If you haven't already, you are more than welcome, and I would encourage you to subscribe via email. Obviously, you can follow the podcast on whatever your favorite podcasting platform is, but if you subscribe to the email, you can do that by going to daretobegin.net/blog. and you'll see all the latest podcasts. But on that page, you'll see a subscribe button. What you'll get is an email from me every week with a little bit of information about the podcast or some insight that I haven't shared on the podcast and that I don't necessarily share in my Instagram posts. And then you get the podcast direct to your inbox so you never miss a thing. Anyway, it's up to you. You don't have to, but if you want to, it's there for you. All right, I wish you a phenomenal rest of the day, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you next week on the podcast. Bye for now. Are you tired of figuring it out all on your own? Of sitting in overwhelm, knowing that you're not moving forward, but having no idea where or how to start? Are you ready to learn effective, profit-supporting strategies for your business so that you can finally earn the money you desire and step into the freedom that you're working so hard to create? If so, I invite you to join me inside the Launchpad. You'll get instant access to free training designed to meet you where you are right now and propel you forward toward the dream that you hold in your mind. It's time to make a powerful move toward your future. Time to step up and serve the people who desperately need your help. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. Today is the day. Join the Launchpad now. Just go to daretobegin.net/the Launchpad and sign up. Your success is inevitable. Now, let's launch it.